Hey everyone, my name's Tomatoanus, also known as Lil Shafty, and this is a speedrun to beat the main quest in Skyrim. This run is performed by Waz, the current world record holder for this category, who also helped me write the script to make sure it's all as accurate as possible. If you'd prefer to watch either this run without commentary or Waz's current world record, they're both linked in the description. This speedrun category may not be called any percent, but typical any percent rules apply where glitches are allowed, so if that's not your cup of tea, then I've also linked the current glitchless main quest record by Nuclear in the description. There isn't a whole lot of info to cover before getting into the run, but there are a few things to at least mention. First is that Skyrim has a pretty famous intro and it's pretty long. The Skyrim speedrunning community chose to have the run officially begin after the cutscene when you gain full control of your character. Because of this, the community allows for runners to begin runs by loading a pre-made save at the point where you gain control after character creation, right when Alduin interrupts your would-be execution. This saves runners like 5 minutes of watching a cutscene every attempt, but also skips character creation so we don't get to see that during the run. Speaking of character creation, in Skyrim, your character's movement speed is tied to their height, with the taller characters being faster. Because of this, speedrunners play as High Elves, also known as Altmers. This is because High Elves are the tallest race at a towering 1.08 units, so they move the fastest in game. Lastly is right at the start of the run, Waz is going to perform a glitch called Infinite Sprint Glitch. This glitch does exactly what it sounds like, and is performed by sprinting, quick saving, releasing sprint, and then quick loading all in rapid succession. Infinite Sprint Glitch also gives you sprint speed when you're swimming or jumping. When you perform Infinite Sprint Glitch, you'll then be able to sprint infinitely until you get into combat because fighting breaks the glitch. And that about covers everything I need to go over before the run. Alright, let's get into it.
We've now arrived at the sponsored portion of Gavin Chainsaw Hands' Deluxe Safari Escort Tour. When me, my brother, and my cousin started up this company, we said, you know what? We're never accepting sponsorships. We're gonna live forever. But due to the bubble in the safari hat market, we've lost all our money, so now we have to sell out. So this video is sponsored by Manscaped. Oh, don't be this guy. Cut through your jungle with ease, like me, Gavin Chainsaw Hands, and get yourself a Lawnmower 4.0. The Lawnmower 4.0 is a waterproof cordless trimmer with top-tier craftsmanship and advanced ceramic blades that have skin-safe technology to help reduce nicks and cuts. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a wireless charging station, gets up to 90 minutes of use on a single charge, and now also has an upgraded multifunction on-off switch. Press once to turn it on normally. Press once to turn it on normally. Oh, sorry about that. It's probably a spam call. 1 second. How does he have service out here? Oh, you betcha. It's a spam call. Thanks. Press once to turn the Lawnmower 4.0 on normally, or press 3 times to lock it for safe travel. Customize hair length with 4 trimmer guard options, and see what you're doing with the LED light. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and get 20% off plus free international shipping when you use code TOMATO20 at manscaped.com. Hey, where are we safaring to, by the way? Your mom's house.
Right away, you'll see a quick stammer after Waz gains control, which is him quick saving and quick loading to perform the Infinite Sprint Glitch. Up these stairs, Waz will time a jump out of Alduin's Kool-Aid manhole and then do some parkour, including walking on an invisible wall for some more direct pathing, saving 0.2 seconds in the process. After jumping off a rock and onto a city wall, Waz is going to quick save and then make a brief detour to the back entrance of Helgen, where he's going to position himself precisely and make an actual save from the menu, which is referred to as a hard save as opposed to a quick save. Gonna pause real quick to explain what's about to happen. This is for a glitch called load warping, which if you've seen my Fallout 4 videos or my No Out of Bounds Oblivion video, you should be very familiar with. So the idea behind load warping is taking a character from one save and transporting them to the location of a character in a different save. For the most part, you can think of it as fast traveling from wherever you're standing to the location another save was made in, which means we can fast travel from inside areas we normally can't fast travel from. This is done by making a save as the character you want to transport to the location of another save, and then loading the save that Waz just made in front of the Helgen back entrance. In this Helgen save then, Waz will walk forward into the loading zone to enter the keep and pause the moment he enters the zone. This causes the pause menu to be pulled up, but the screen will be black, sort of like an invisible pause menu. After then quitting out to the main menu, then whatever save Woz loads next, he'll load in as the character from that save, but the character will be in the location of the Helgen backdoor keep load area that we just walked into. This will happen a couple times throughout the run, and again, it lets us fast travel from areas where we can't fast travel from, and lets us escape those areas quickly. So after Woz makes this save, he quick loads to be back on top of the city wall and makes his way to the entrance of the Helgen Keep to progress the main quest just slightly. Here we quick save and quick load to skip a couple of Hadvar's lines, then jump to skip the animation of our hands becoming unbound, which is why we came here, then quick save and load the load warp save we made moments ago. Woz walks forward and pauses at just the right time to get the screen to go black but the menu to be up and quits to the main menu. There he presses continue to load the quick save he just made, which loads us in at the back entrance of the keep that we just walked into as the character who got their hands unbound, skipping all of the Helgen intro sequence. Something to note that just happened is that Woz quick saved and quick loaded after the loading screen, which skipped the fade in that happens, letting him get moving immediately. He'll be doing that all throughout the run. So Woz just fast traveled to Helgen and is making his way up this big hill, jumping on the way because jumping up and down hills with infinite sprint glitch is faster than just running. Up here, Woz will grab an arrow on the ground from a bandit encounter, but ignores the bandits who spawn and keeps making his way up the hill. The arrow is so that he has something to sell to a vendor in a little bit for a glitch. When Woz gets closer to the top, he'll enter third person and make a quick save to load back as in a moment, and will walk far enough up the hill to get a hunter with a horse to spawn. He'll then turn around and walk back down to where the hunter will appear after he waits for an hour, and will steal the horse from her when she gets off to fight the bandits we ran past. We're going to use the horse for what's probably the most famous Skyrim speedrunning glitch, horse tilting. Sorry for pausing twice so early in the run, but have to do it again one more time real quick. Woz is going to ride the horse onto a nearby rock and make a save that will be loading a lot throughout the run to perform this glitch. After the save is made, Woz will ride the horse forward off the edge super slowly. When going off the ledge this slowly, the horse stays upright despite standing completely parallel to the ground. Once the horse is in a spot where its hind legs are planted in a way that we can dismount, Woz will then get off the horse, which causes the character to start flying off the saddle and flying around the screen. See, here you can see the character just zipping off the saddle like it's nobody's business. The longer you let your character fly off the saddle for, the more speed they build up. Woz will then pause buffer to try and get the game paused at just the right moment when our character has flown just far enough off the saddle so we have the right amount of speed, and then unpause and quick load. When we then load in our quick save that we made in third person, we'll have the horse tilt speed and just be going insanely fast. This speed only lasts while you're in third person and gradually declines over time, so if you want to stop going this fast at any moment, you can just switch to first person and the glitch ends. Additionally, going this fast makes it super easy to die from fall damage, so when running around at this high of speeds, you have to be careful to not drop too much onto solid ground. Also, you might think that it would make the most sense to just let your character fly super far off the saddle so you always are moving insanely fast. The issue with this though is that there is such a thing as moving too fast. If you quick load too late on the horse tilt, then you'll be going too fast to be able to really control yourself, so there is an upper limit to the window of when you should quick load. Also, at different points in the run, you want horse tilts of different speeds, so you're not always trying to necessarily go as fast as you can while still having control. Lastly, when you load back into the save you made to transfer the speed, you'll actually be going side to side with the transferred speed initially because of how we fly off the horse. This also kind of locks our inputs, but pressing S sort of unlocks our movements and inputs and lets us move forward again. That about covers all the knowledge you should know going into the glitch, so let's see Woz actually do it now. So again, here Woz is getting on the horse, riding it on top of the rock, making a save to reuse throughout the run, and moving forward slowly to tilt the horse. Then, after dismounting the horse and zipping off, Woz pauses to get the timing on it right, then unpauses and quick loads to load the third person save and transfer all that speed into our character as we run around. Woz zips across the map and climbs the 7,000 steps in about 3 steps to discover High Hrothgar at the top. When Woz actually discovers High Hrothgar, he then immediately turns left to fly north across the map and land just off the coast of Dawnstar in the water to cancel any fall damage. Dawnstar isn't important to the main quest, but it's convenient for performing 2 glitches. The first is the vendor glitch that we grabbed the arrow for a moment ago. The reason we need the arrow is that it quickly gives us an item in our inventory so that our inventory pops up in the bartering menu. Woz talks to Rustleaf and sees what he has for sale, then clicks on his own inventory, drags it up to Rustleaf's inventory, and presses E on apparel. This opens Rustleaf's inventory in sell mode and lets us sell him his own stuff repeatedly, giving us a ton of gold. Once we have all Rustleaf's gold, we head over to a tanning rack to perform a ghost tilt. By spamming quick save when we go to interact with a crafting station, we create a glitched save where our character will be stuck standing at the station. If we then load our horse tilting save and get a ton of speed, when we quick load back to the stuck standing at the station save, we break out of being stuck but maintain all the properties of being in the station. In this case, we're locked at a specific height and have no collision with the world. This is truly the final form of speedrunning, near infinite speed and no collision. What more could you ask for? Alright, so here's the vendor glitch and ghost tilting being performed in real time.
Yourself or yourself. I'm back if you need steel.
The first thing Woz does with this speed is discover Septimus Cygnus' outpost so we can get the lexicon from him later. Woz now makes his way to under Katla's farm to discover it for later, then will position himself under the Thalmor embassy and quick save quick load. This causes us to upwarp out of the ghost tilt to the ground directly above us inside the embassy. The embassy is typically inaccessible until much later, but with the upwarp we can enter and loot a quest item from a chest to update our current quest to diplomatic immunity, putting us about halfway through the main quest line. This skips doing things like killing our first dragon, talking with Jarl Balgruuf, and getting the horn of Jurgen Windcaller. Woz just fast traveled to Septimus Cygnus' outpost where he's going to pickpocket the lexicon I mentioned a moment ago off of Septimus. This is because as part of the main quest, we need to get an Elder Scroll that will help us defeat the big bad of the game, Alduin, the dragon from the start of the game, and to get the Elder Scroll we need this lexicon. When we exit, we then fast travel back to Helgen where we're going to be making a quick save to perform another horse tilt, with the goal this time being to get a medium amount of speed from the tilt. After quick loading to transfer the speed to our character, we'll go full speed ahead and drop into a river just outside of Whiterun. Woz will then discover Battleborn Farm real quick, making sure to not dilly-dally too much, else a guard we interact with later will spawn now and their position later will be messed up. Woz then heads to the Tower of Mazark where, because we're going so fast, the collision for the tower isn't loaded, so we can go straight through the wall to the inside where we then quick save quick load to have everything load properly. We now enter the tower and make our way up to the lexicon receptacle, and Woz will go through and do the puzzle to get the Elder Scroll. When pressing these buttons, Woz is careful to not spam on the last button press on the first podium, or else the entire puzzle glitches out and loses us about 10 seconds. After completing the puzzle, Woz will line himself up with a visual cue on the floor while waiting for the big crystal to show us its innards so that he can grab the Elder Scroll from as far away as possible. When Woz exits the tower, he's going to fast travel to Battleborn Farm where he's going to punch that guard that he made sure he didn't spawn earlier. This leads to us going with the guard to pay our fine, bringing us to and discovering Dragon's Reach, which we'll come back to later. As soon as we load in, Woz fast travels back to Battleborn Farm and interacts with a tanning rack there and spams quick save to set up another ghost tilt. For this ghost tilt and horse tilt, we want a ridiculous amount of speed, so Woz will wait for our character to fly completely out of the camera. We need all this speed because we're going to be discovering a ton of locations with this ghost tilt. The locations we discover are Old Hroldan, Whiterun Stables, and Riverwood. Then after Riverwood, Woz is going to perform another upwarp that requires him to use a visual cue to stand in a pretty precise location. This upwarp brings us all the way up to the throat of the world near the top of the mountain by High Hrothgar, saving a ton of time that we would otherwise spend climbing. Ghost tilting and horse tilting speed carries over through fast travel, so here Woz fast travels to Old Hroldan, which we just discovered. From here, he zips through a little river valley between some mountains and enters first person to return to normal and both discover and enter Karthspire. Entering Karthspire marks us being done with the first chunk of the run, which was prepped for later by discovering locations and items, and the reason we're at Karthspire is because this is where the entrance to Skyhaven Temple is. Here Woz will do a bit of parkour and platforming with precise jumping to skip the puzzles, and then the moment he discovers Skyhaven Temple, he'll fast travel to Whiterun Stables. Our next goal is to get to and discover the city of Riften. Woz will opt for the scenic route of discovering Riften by taking a carriage as opposed to horse or ghost tilting, because sometimes doing things the old-fashioned way is slightly faster. In this case, riding the carriage takes about 12 seconds, while Woz estimates that tilting to Riften would take somewhere around 15 seconds, so it's about 3 seconds faster to hail a cab. When we arrive in Riften, Woz will fist a horse. After forking up the fine for our fisting of the filly, we're taken to inside of Riften and closer to the entrance of the Ratway, which is where we're going to pick up on that quest we sequence broke to earlier. We have to find and speak to Esbern, one of the only known members of the Blades in Skyrim, which are the dudes who hole up in Skyhaven Temple, the place we just discovered in Karthspire. Here, Waz is going to run through all these pathways, utilizing infinite sprint glitch along with quick saving and quick loading to skip fade-ins after entering new areas. We have a moment while he does that and talks to Esbern, so while he does that, I'd just like to say that I hope you're all doing well. If we're not so lucky though, for any of you not doing too great at the moment, please remember that no feeling is final. Happy and light moments in your life aren't gone forever, they're on the horizon. Those good days might not be here today, or tomorrow, or next week, but there are bright days in your future, days where things don't feel hopeless. Feelings of despair you have right now don't define you or the rest of your life. Always remember that there is a tomorrow, and again, no feeling is final. I know that I harp on this every video at some point, and I don't care what any of you say, I'm going to keep saying it every video. Back to the run, when Waz talked to Esbern, he tabbed out of the dialogue a couple times to save time, then quick save quick loaded, then waited an hour for Esbern to walk 3 feet to get to his door. After a couple more quick save quick loads to skip Esbern's lines as he unlocks the door, Waz blasts through the doorway to hit a trigger to talk to Esbern again and does some more tabbing out, selecting certain dialogue options and spamming to talk to Esbern to get through this talk as quickly as possible to advance the quest. After this talk, Waz will then make a hard save and load the load warp save from the beginning of the run and perform a load warp to bring our character who just talked to Esbern to the location of the load warp save, skipping the long way out of the Ratway. Waz is then going to fast travel to Riverwood to do some more Esbern stuff, but the game has a tendency to crash on Windows 10 when you enter the Sleeping Giants Inn, which happened in this run, so Waz had to quickly reopen the game. Once we get back up and running, inside the inn, Waz will wait and look for Esbern's line, then exit. Outside, he'll wait again and quick save quick load 4 times to time out when to re-enter. Waz then looks at a bucket while he quick save quick loads a 5th time and spams E, which picks up the bucket multiple times, so we now have 3 to 5 buckets in our inventory. These 5 quick save quick loads timed out and skip the quest dialogue inside the inn to the point where by entering the inn, the quest updates and we can head out to the Skyhaven Temple and meet Esbern there for the next quest. At the temple, we can't quick save quick load to skip dialogue because doing that here gives us a loading screen, so instead Waz bumps into Esbern, which is an alternate way to skip lines. Waz then activates the blood seal and fast travels away during the animation, which allows us to then jump out of the animation to skip it once we load in. The temple door takes a few seconds to open, so while it does that, we're going to be knocking out some other tasks. Here in Riften, we enter the Bee and the Barb because we're going to get married. Well, not actually. This is the main reason why we did the vendor glitch earlier, because to get married, we first need to have the Amulet of Mara from Maramal for 200 gold, then hire Mercurio for 500 gold before we can arrange a marriage with him. The reason we're doing this is that for some reason, if you fail to attend a marriage at the same time as you're in a cutscene, then player controls get enabled during that cutscene and you can do things during it. Waz then times out his fast travel back to Skyhaven Temple so that he travels before the marriage quest updates, because otherwise then too much time would pass after the marriage quest updated and we'd be getting married too soon since there's a 2-day timer for marriage, and traveling from Riften to the temple takes 21 hours, passing midnight in the process, making it count as one of the 2 days in the timer. Here Waz waits and quick save quick loads a couple times to get the NPCs to move faster, and he also does another one of those quick save quick load item dupes like we did on the bucket, but this time with Dragonbane, giving us 3 to 5 copies that Waz equips in our left and right hand since they're great for fighting Alduin. Waz then does some quick save quick loading and waiting to skip lines, along with some talking and bumping into Esbern to get Delphine in the right state to get the quest to update, starting the quest The Throat of the World. As part of this quest, we need to talk to the Greybeards at High Hrothgar, but the front doors to High Hrothgar are locked because we skipped the quest that unlocks them. Instead, Waz takes a bucket out of his inventory and just slams himself into a specific wall to clip through it. There he'll run into some weird textures that just push him upwards to the back entrance of High Hrothgar, which he'll interact with to enter the monastery. There we speak to Arngir and pick all the fastest options to get through his dialogue quickly, then quick save quick load the last line and wait at a specific time to get him to be outside.
Where did you learn of that? Have you learned nothing from us? But heed my warning. No, it is called. We do not regret this loss. Only Parthenax. He lives. He speaks to us. Only those.
When Waz approaches the door to exit, he's going to quick save and quick load a few times to time out when all the shouts will be on the ground for us to learn. Waz has recently started playing on a new computer though, so the timing on his new computer for this is a bit different than his old one, and he hasn't ironed out all the kinks yet. Because of this, his timing was slightly off, causing one of the shouts to bug out and not spawn on the ground, making Waz have to reload a save and go back inside High Hrothgar for another moment to pass a little more time and make sure the shout spawns correctly. After learning the clear sky shout for the end of the run, Waz then fast travels to the throat of the world to speak with Parthenax, a dragon voiced by Mario and Luigi Mario. Waz positions himself on a rock so that he can jump up and start talking to Parthenax before he lands, then we'll run around Parthenax to get him to face the correct direction and spam E on him while he uses his fire breath to interrupt him, getting the shout to appear on the wall. This dialogue with Parthenax was him telling us how we can defeat Alduin, and from this we learned that we need to get an Elder Scroll from which we'll learn the Dragon Rend shout, and we'll use that shout to defeat Alduin. If only we knew where to find one of those pesky Elder Scrolls. At the end of the dialogue when Parthenax begins to fly away, the quest updates and Waz pulls up the Elder Scroll to read and advance the quest, initiating the cutscene that we're going to interrupt by failing to attend our marriage. Right now, 1 day has passed since we proposed, so now Mercurio is waiting at the altar to get married, and if midnight passes, then we fail to attend our marriage. The Elder Scroll cutscene begins shortly after the screen goes all white, so Waz will quick save 5 times to queue up the action of waiting and have it timed out so the action is performed in a window where we have control before the cutscene begins that's only a few tenths of a second long. Waz will then wait for 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run. When Waz goes to wait, he does something referred to as the wait trick, whereby setting the slider to the time we want to wait for, then clicking and holding it and pressing E and dragging it back down to 1 hour, then the 21 hours will pass by super quickly compared to normal. After the wait, you can see on screen that we failed to attend our wedding ceremony, which enables player controls during this cutscene. This allows us to kill the dragon during the cutscene so the heroes don't have to. Waz chains together a ton of power attacks here by utilizing a trick called Infinite Power Attack, where by holding down both mouse buttons to start power attacks with both hands, then clicking both mouse buttons again at the start of the power attacks, the stamina drain of the power attacks is interrupted due to queuing up a normal attack after the power attacks. We can't quick save, quick load, or wait to skip dialogue during the cutscene, so Waz makes the most of this dialogue time by using a carriage to travel to Windhelm's stable and to attack a guard so we can discover Palace of the Kings as well. Waz will then fast travel to High Hrothgar to trigger a voice line, then to the throat of the world to skip the voice line and witness more of the cutscene.
Let those that watch from Sovngarde envy us this day.
When Alduin looks towards us, Waz fast travels away and back again to skip even more of the cutscene. When we return, Waz will interact with Wonder Woman actress Linda Carter to make her vulnerable and then use fire breath on her to take her out. This helps progress the cutscene a bit faster. Waz then spams E on the NPCs to skip more of their dialogue, then after a specific dialogue line, Waz will fast travel to Dragon's Reach. The cutscene is about to end, so the game will begin to warp us back soon, so when Waz arrives at Dragon's Reach, he's going to speak with Jarl Balgruuf to initiate a normally super slow dialogue that we have to go through at some point to progress the quest after this one. When the cutscene ends and we get warped back, the dialogue with Balgruuf will continue to go on, essentially skipping it for us.
What's the meaning of this interruption? Please. Jarl Balgruuf is not.
As the screen fades in, Waz hotkeys the 3 shouts we're going to be using throughout the rest of the run and blindly hits Alduin with a full strength Dragon Rend, which makes it so that Alduin will be vulnerable for the full duration of the fight. Because Waz hit Alduin with the shouts before Alduin finished his animation of flying down a bit, Alduin comes down to the ground much sooner. Waz positions himself at Alduin's wing so that he can't get hit by Alduin's tail or Alduin's frost breath and infinite power attacks again like he did against the other dragon earlier. After Alduin's health hits 0, he'll get up and fly to Skyrim heaven to recover, and getting there to neutralize him once and for all is now the main goal of the story. Waz is now going to speak to Paarthurnax again, and once the quest updates, Waz will fast travel to Dragon's Reach again, where Balgruuf has now finished up that long dialogue we traveled away from. This upcoming section in Dragon's Reach will mostly just be Waz getting through the dialogue options as quickly as possible to progress the quest, and he's going to keep his swords out because he's going to have to surrender to a guard in a bit, and it's more efficient to keep them out now and put them away when we surrender rather than put them away now, take them out again later, and putting them away again when we surrender. After this dialogue, Waz will then fast travel back to High Hrothgar where he does another bucket clip to get to the backyard, and remember earlier when Waz waited 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run? Waz will then wait for 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run. Well, this is where that second part comes into play, because if everything went correctly, it's 7 AM right now, and when we arrive at High Hrothgar, Arngir will be kneeling in front of the bonfire in the backyard. So right now in the story, we need the help of Balgruuf, but he won't help out while the civil war between the Stormcloaks and Imperials is happening, so we're attempting to arrange a peace council to negotiate a truce. The thing is though, is that only the Greybeards are in a position to hold a peace council, which is why we're here. After Waz speaks with the dad from The Sound of Music and convinces him to involve the Greybeards in a political affair, Waz will then fast travel to Katla's farm where he'll immediately incinerate a guard. Because we look super cute though when we give puppy dog eyes, and also because we put away our weapons, the guard lets us go as long as we pay our fine, which brings us to Castle Dower in Solitude. Here we speak with General Tullius to set up the Peace Council, which, as Waz says, is the most boring part of the run. Don't get too excited yet though, we're not at the Peace Council just yet, we're still in the planning and organizing phase still. After speaking to Tullius, Waz is now going to fast travel to the Palace of the Kings in Windhelm to speak with Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak to convince him to take part in the council with the Imperials who just RSVP'd for the event.
He's a true Nord. He'll come around. I remember you. Speak with him. It's about time they turn. I have the Empire's putting a great deal. I can't afford. Good. I doubt the Yeah.
After speaking to Ulfric, when exiting the palace, Waz is going to go into third person because there's a glitch where when exiting the palace in first person, you can't fast travel away for half a second or so. Back at High Hrothgar, Waz uses another fucking bucket to clip through the wall again, but mixes it up this time by going to the right inside of the wall for some faster pathing to interact with the door to enter the monastery. Inside, Waz heads to the council table and sits down, then immediately will stand up and wait to activate the cutscene. Waz then opens and closes the console really quickly after waiting, because if you don't pause and unpause the game in some way, then there's a chance the Greybeard will be stuck in his dialogue, soft locking the game. Additionally, Waz stood up from his chair as he waited an hour to activate the cutscene because now that he's standing, he doesn't need to stand up from the chair at the end of the council, saving about 2 seconds. This peace council is very long and just consists of Waz quick saving and quick loading to skip all these lines, in addition to waiting an hour occasionally to get NPCs to move to their positions quicker, so forgive me for fast forwarding a bit through this. Once the council comes to an agreement on a treaty, then Waz will speak to Esbern to advance to the next quest, where our plan to get to Alduin, capture a dragon, and make him fly us to Skyrim heaven. Definitely not something the gang at Patty's Pub would have come up with. When speaking to Esbern, Waz taps out of the dialogue after clicking through the first 3 lines, then quick save quick loads to skip through 2 seconds of clicking on dialogue to get to the next quest faster. Esbern wants us to not only continue the main quest and capture a dragon, but also kill the Mario dragon, which, no thanks, that's a detour and likely a crime in both Italy and Japan. At the end of the dialogue, Esbern teaches us the Call Dragon Shout, and we're off to Dragon's Reach to speak with Balgruuf and begin the actual capturing of the dragon. The dragon we're going to be calling and catching is Odahviing, the right-hand dragon to Alduin. So remember earlier when I reminded you of earlier when Woz waited 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run? And remember earlier when Woz waited 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run? Woz will then wait for 21 hours to pass midnight and also get the game to a certain time for NPCs to be in the correct spot for later in the run. Well, this is where that second part comes into play. Well, that 21-hour wait also comes into play here because it gives us the best Balgriff position where he's eating at the tables instead of being in bed or sitting on his throne. Woz then used the Call Dragon shout to summon Odahviing and waits for the visual cue of his shout resetting at the top in the compass bar as an indicator of the quest updating. Woz then waits an hour to move NPCs along, quick save quick loads to reset the door immediately, and begins casting Dragon Rend as he interacts with it so that it hits Odahviing when we load in. Woz then takes out a guard that Odahviing fixates on if left alive, making Odahviing land sooner, and once he does, Woz fire shouts him to get his health to a certain point to trigger him to follow us. Woz then goes inside and back out to skip the cutscene of Odahviing getting captured in the device, and then talks with him to convince him to bring us to Alduin. We'll then go upstairs to unlock the device and wait an hour to get him out near his position, but he won't be quite in the correct position right away, but after quick save quick loading 2 of his voice lines and waiting again, then he moves to the right spot. Also, there's a 50-50 chance in the run when we're walking to Odahviing after freeing him that some dude shows up and asks if we've seen someone wearing a checkered suit, losing you 4 seconds, and he did unfortunately show up in this run.
I've been looking. A letter. Looks like that's it.
After speaking to Odahviing again and picking the line to progress, Woz immediately tabs out of the dialogue and fast travels away, which skips the cutscene of us flying away. As soon as we load in, we make a save and load our horse tilting save once again. This horse tilt is a lot different than the others. Earlier in the run, our goal with tilting was to use our speed to traverse around the map quickly, whereas this one relies on using our speed to climb up the map quickly and gain height. After wiggling up hills and zipping across an invisible wall to gain height, Woz then enters the final part of this area and enters the portal to Skyrim Heaven. Here we're going to be doing another horse tilt, but there's no water in Skyrim Heaven to land in, so first Woz runs down this hill a bit to reduce any potential fall damage when we horse tilt. We don't need to travel very far for this tilt, so Woz is only going to let the character fly off the horse a little bit before loading back to Skyrim Heaven. When we load in and start zooming towards the Hall of Valor, Woz skims off a rock to reset our fall damage, and then when he arrives, he speaks to Sun. Sun is guarding the Whalebone Bridge, which we have to cross to reach the hall, and the only way to gain access is by proving our might to him by lowering his health below 60%, which is an easy feat with a power attack and fire breath. When we gain access to the bridge, we enter third person in quick save to set up our final horse tilt of the run to quickly cross the bridge. Woz slams into the Hall of Valor right away when we load back in and enters the hall while tilting and begins to move backwards as he interacts with the door. This way we don't ramp up and gain height inside the hall and miss the trigger for activating the NPCs inside. These NPCs are going to cross the bone bridge with us, but they're very slow, so instead Woz enters and exits the hall repeatedly to skip their lines and wait for them to come outside with us and fully cross the bridge on their own. We'll see them at the end of the bridge when we get there, and we had to employ this entering and exiting strategy to get them across the bridge quickly because we can't wait while we're in Skyrim Heaven. Once we cross the bone bridge ourselves, we'll be in the final confrontation of the run. There Woz will skip a couple lines with quick save quick loading and proceed to use the Clear Skies shout. We have to clear out the fog 3 times before Alduin shows up, so there's a bit of waiting involved. After the first and second shouts we do, Alduin shouts Ven Mulric to have his fog come back, and both times Woz will use that subtitle disappearing as a visual cue for when the heroes begin saying more voice lines, which is when Woz quick save quick loads to skip their lines. Just before the final shout, Woz will begin to preemptively position himself near a spot where he'll be able to Dragon Rend Alduin the moment he spawns. Then, after the final shout, Woz moves to the actual final perch and hides himself around a corner like a 2-year-old playing hide and seek. This is because Alduin can spawn in 2 spots, one near to us on the left and one a bit farther away to the right. If you're looking at one of the spawns, then Alduin gets performance anxiety and spawns in the other one, so by standing here with our vision of Alduin's good spawn just barely obscured, then Alduin will spawn close to us and Woz can hit him with the surprise Dragon Rend the moment he appears. Woz then retreats to right where Alduin lands. This fight is super straightforward, with us just wailing away at Alduin with the heroes helping out for extra damage, making this fight go by even faster than the previous one against Alduin. After our onslaught of flailing swords and dragon rends, then Alduin's health will hit 0, marking the official end to the run. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much on behalf of both myself and Waz. This run is incredibly unique, and I'm so glad that we finally got to cover it on this channel. Waz is someone who I've wanted to work with for a long time, and he's held the record for this category for over 4 years straight now. Working with him definitely lived up to the hype because he was great to work with, and I highly recommend you all check out his channel for more Elder Scrolls speedruns. If Elder Scrolls speedruns interest you, then I definitely recommend joining the speedrun community's Discord that's linked on speedrun.com. There's a ton of overlap between the Elder Scrolls speedrunning community and the Fallout speedrunning community, so I've gotten to know several of them pretty well over the years, and they're all super friendly and welcoming. Additionally, a big thank you goes out to those of you who choose to support the channel on Patreon. Seriously, making these videos would not be possible without you. We just crossed the 200 patron milestone, which is just ridiculous, honestly. I feel like we just crossed 150 the other month. For crossing that milestone, I'm letting my patrons suggest speedruns for a video, and then they all get to vote on which one gets made. If you're watching this video at release, then there's likely a small window where you can become a patron and still get to vote, but if you miss that window, then don't worry, we'll have similar things in the future for crossing milestones that are multiples of 50. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to updates on what videos are in development, where videos are at in the creation process, access to videos early and without ads, and taking part in things like the aforementioned poll to decide future videos, along with Q&A live streams that we do for every 50 patrons. There's a link in the description if you're interested, and as always, it's by no means necessary, but thank you to all of you who choose to do it anyways. Tomatoanus Discord server. I purposefully plug it at the end of every video so only the real ones will see this, but if you haven't joined already and a welcoming, supportive, wholesome server sounds like a place you want to be, then come join the fun. That's all for this video though. This was a main quest speedrun of Skyrim. I've been tomatoanus, and I hope you have an above average day.